Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Creative Insider Podcast number 71 with me, Georgi. In this podcast episode, we have another amazing guest, and that's James Martin. He is a graphic designer, a brand identity expert coming from the UK. He is the man behind the Instagram profile at mate.by.james, which has hundreds of thousands of followers, and it's full of super helpful content for creatives and for people who want to try to design logos or graphic design or brand design. In this podcast episode, we have discussed how he has started his agency, which he has co-founded with a mate of him, and it's called Baby Giant, which is an oxymoron, and it's a very funny name, really cool logo too. And we talk about how he came up with his name, and about his book that he's about to release, about future classes he's about to release and working on. So yeah, it was a really interesting conversation. He explained also some of his strategies to network in the beginning of the agency, how to get business, how he used Instagram to get business, and so on and so on and so on. So I suggest you to listen to the full conversation to get to know everything about James. But before we start, I want to remind you that if you like what we do, if you like the podcast, if you have heard at least 2-3 episodes and you think it's something useful for you and inspiring, or just keep you company while being around or working out or whatever you like to do while listening to the podcast, you can support the podcast for free by just mentioning it to other friends, subscribing to our platforms wherever you're listening, and following us on our social media channels, which are at TCI Podcast on Instagram and the LinkedIn page, The Creative Insider. If you really can and you want to help us keep going, because it's kind of a work, we have to put some effort to find a guest, to record, to edit, and if you want to keep us going and make better product, get better gear, get better tools, you can do that by supporting us on Patreon. So under the podcast, you'll find a link to Patreon where you can spend $5 a month, and you will be able to know the guests in advance. So if people like James are coming, you'll know in advance, and you can submit some questions which will kind of integrate into the interview. So these are the options to support us. Also, remember to subscribe to our newsletter on thecreativeinsider.com so that we can stay in touch if something happens with our social media channels. And that's it. Enough with the talking. Enjoy the conversation with James from Made by James and Baby Giant.
The whole world stops just like that.
Hello, James. How are you?
Yeah, very well, my friend. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
Thank you very much for accepting the invitation on the podcast. It's a big pleasure. I've been following your work for quite a while now, and I don't know. One day I was just thinking, okay, let's just try to text him. I don't know. Maybe you get too many messages and stuff like that, and then you answered, and that's why I'm very, very thankful that you accepted my invitation for this little chat.
No, not at all. Like I was saying, I mean, I'm always happy to chat design with anybody. Always try and get back to everybody as well. Or even though it sometimes takes me days to get back to people, but I'm always up for chat.
No, you were quite fast with me, and I was super positively surprised. But for the people who might not know you yet, can you tell a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. Well, the short version, I'll give you the short version because no doubt we'll go into it more. My name's James Martin. Many of you may not know me as Made by James on Instagram, social media, YouTube, and all the rest of it. Basically, I'm a brand identity designer who runs a design agency called Baby Giant Design Co. And yeah, basically, I do logos all day, every day. But as well as that client work, I also share knowledge, insight, thoughts based around logo design, brand identity, to try and help the young designers grow and not make the same mistakes I did. Yeah, that's basically elevator pitch me, I would say.
Yeah, I was like, I started this podcast a year and a half ago now. And before I started, I was doing, you can find online a lot of step-by-step tutorials how to start your podcast, come up with a name, come up with an image, come up with the graphics, the colors, and so on. And then I was thinking about, okay, I need to make some sort of a logo. I need to make some sort of, this to give this identity. And I'm quite lucky because my girlfriend, she's helping me with this, and she's a brand strategist. And I'm an architect, so I'm pretty handy with design. And then I started having some ideas about the logo, but I'm gonna say I suck a lot with logos. And when I go,
it's right, I suck a lot at architecture, so it's all good.
and then when I go to your page and see the logos, I'm like, damn, how did he come up with these ideas? And it's like your page, your Instagram page, it's a full like page of inspiration for logos, and you do these really cool carousels. Do you do them actually by hand, or they just look like they're made by hand?
I used to do them all by hand up until about maybe 3 months ago. And then they were taking me ages. And as soon as I made a mistake, I'd have to either leave it or start again. And I still make mistakes now, but now I've teamed up with my mate Sam, who's from Set Sail Studios, and he creates fonts and really cool fonts. And I had a little chat with him, and I said, look, I can't be doing this, can we do something? So basically I wrote out all of my handwriting, all of my chunky letters, like 3 or 4 versions of each, and then we made it into a font. So now my posts like that they've gone from taking like 3 hours to like 20 minutes. And that's good, because time's quite important. So they used to be all hand done, but because of that, I now make a font. So it's all good. Saves a lot of time.
It's still kind of like curious because it's like your handwriting turned into digital form. So
that's it. Yeah, as I say, it was purely like to be fair, like a total selfish thing to try and save time. But I've also made some money out of selling it, so it's kind of worked out pretty well.
No, it's not selfish. I think that it's very important that you keep doing the carousels because they have really helpful content, and they're very helpful for people like me or people that want to become professionals and graphic designers and creative in general. And this is what I try to do with my podcast, is to help people to find their own way towards becoming a professional creative, because I don't come from a creative family. I don't have a background in architecture, and for me it was really hard when starting to figure out my own way. So what I like to do is to start with every guest to tell them, okay, what was the moment in your life when you thought, okay, I want to try to be professional with my craft, with my creativity. I want to improve myself into this direction. Was there a certain moment in your life, or was it because of your family? How did it happen?
No, I mean, my mum, dad, and brother don't have a creative bone in their body. So I think, I was always very creative at school. I was always like sporty and arty rather than what I would call intelligent. Not very good at maths.
I don't I
not
think
very.
I think you need to be intelligent to do what you do, but go ahead.
Yeah, I know. Maybe academic. Maybe that's the better word I should have used. But yeah, so I was rubbish at, sciences, maths, but I could draw. So that was something I always enjoyed. But, growing up, I'm 30. What am I? I'm 38 this year. So growing up as a 10, 11, 12-year-old boy, creativity wasn't really, you know, a viable career choice. You kind of did that as a hobby and then did something else. So, yeah, I kind of went through school, did all that, and did some teaching, did some illustration stuff, did a tattoo apprenticeship, and kind of, it was always kind of creative based, but graphic design was never really my thing. But I went to college to do like an art foundation after trying to figure out my life when I was about 19, 20. And suddenly this thing called graphic design kind of popped up. I didn't even have a clue what it was. But, my kind of teacher, tutor, mentor, whatever you want to call them, said, maybe you should try graphic design. And I was like, why not? why not try it? And that would have been, God, crikey. 20 years ago, 17, 18 years ago. So, yeah, and from there, kind of, I didn't really like it. Didn't not like it, but it was just I was doing it. So I continued to do it through college, and then kind of thought, well, I still want to bum around, so I might as well kind of go on to like a higher course. So I went on and did like a diploma in it, and then I did a degree in it, but I didn't really. It was kind of more communication design rather than graphic design. So it was a lot of like different elements of like marketing, advertising, and lots of block work type, kind of like the arty side of it, And then during that kind of time, I thought, why not, try and get a job? So I kind of walked around with my little A3 portfolio and walked into design agencies and was like, can I have a job? And they were like, no. And then randomly I think I was working at a cafe at the time, and one of the guys came in, his friend had just started a design agency, and I was always talking to him about wanting to get into design. And then lo and behold, I went over there. I took my drawings, my portfolio, which was rubbish, and they gave me a go. So yeah, that was kind of my kind of progress from having no clue what I wanted to do as a creative, and then finding graphic design, and then from there it's kind of grown into a passion. But that wasn't always the case. It's something I kind of fell into, then fell in love with, rather than I loved it, then did it kind of thing.
I'm curious. It was very interesting. You said you didn't like it in the beginning. What didn't you like about it? Because nowadays when people go and see your work, it looks really like your life and your passion. What was in the beginning what you didn't like about it?
I was, you got to remember that I was a creative. I was what I would consider an artist, free, expression, whereas, there were certain rules that had to be kind of followed, not with reference to layout and structure. And you got to remember, like, I've spent the last 15 years being a designer, but only really found my true love, which is brand identity and logo design, over the last 5. So for 10 years, there was a lot of experimenting. I did web, animation, Photoshop work, basically anything and everything, like using old things like Flash and Dreamweaver to make websites and all that kind of rubbish. So I think maybe it was just, I think like you do with, like, when you start any kind of agency or with any job, you're kind of doing a little bit of everything, because you're just doing what you're told. It's only when you start to grow, and obviously with patience and perseverance and practice, you start to kind of find your kind of vibe, and then it kind of just escalates from there. So I think it was possibly more the fact that, again, I was still very young when I started that agency. I was like maybe like 23, 24. So I was kind of like, I don't really know what I want to do, but I'm going to try this because I've been doing this. So get in there. The work might have not been super interesting. And to be fair, it wasn't that interesting. So I think it's just a combination of many, many things. But yeah, so over time, the passion grew, the love for the industry grew. But yeah, it wasn't always the case. But this is why you got to stick at stuff.
And what was the first gig you got after school? What was your first job?
Crikey. So yeah, basically, the first job I went to after college. Yeah,
Yes.
so basically that was just a design agency job. So yeah, it was just a small team working on like mobile applications. We did work on some cool gaming stuff for like people like Coca-Cola and some other companies like Green King. I don't know if you know them, but they're a brewery over here. So we did some quite cool messaging stuff for them. But so I mean, the job was quite good, I think, but it was just like, it wasn't really a graphic design. It was a graphic design agency job, but the stuff we weren't doing was like cool. I wasn't allowed, because I was like the young skivvy. I wasn't doing all the cool branding. I was doing all the photoshopping images and trying to animate in Flash, all stuff I hate now.
And I'm curious, like what are like the skills that you learned through your college? Because for example, I come also with a background from I was quite lucky because I grew up in Italy, in Rome, and there we have sort of a high school of arts. Which is after you finish middle school, we have like when you're 13, 14, you go to this school where you can the first 2 years experiment with painting, sculpture, a little bit of more technical drawing, and then after the third year you can decide if you go into interiors and architecture or keep going with really like painting or sculpture. And I was quite lucky when I went to the university because I had already went through this moment where you're free and drawing and you have to bring in some structure through, like all the design skills that you bring in. Yeah. So as somebody that studied graphic design and art and things like that, what were the skills that you really... Now when you look back to that time, because I think also you get more aware of what you have learned after years that you have practiced.
We get wiser as we get older. Yeah.
So what is for you?
I mean, education. I mean, especially. There's always a conversation about education. Are you educated in design or are you not? I think we're all kind of self-taught in some respect, because to get any better at something you got to put in the effort. So like I didn't learn a huge amount at college, but the things I did learn were like being able to hit timelines. There was a deadline for projects, so projects had to be completed and done by a certain time. So that kind of transferred really well into the real world where you have project deadlines. It's not kind of like, oh, I can just take as long as I want over this and it's done when it's done. There's a structure that has to be met. And I think the education side of that helped me in my kind of real world life. The camaraderie and working in a team, and obviously, a lot of young designers now are kind of finishing school, going straight into freelance, but they don't like talking to people. And that's a really big part of having your own business, is being able to talk to clients. And I think, obviously, and also like the kind of constructive criticism and guidance, I think was like a really good thing. And I think that's something a lot of people struggle with now, is like they if they get constructive criticism, they get very angry because they don't like people criticizing their work. I mean, we're artists. I mean, nobody likes us criticizing our work. But I think in that setup, you see it as a positive, oh, I'm learning, rather than this guy's just slamming my work. So, I think there's a lot of positives. But, there's obviously negatives. It does cost money. I grew up, and there weren't great courses online. I didn't even have a mobile phone. Do you know what I mean? It was kind of like, the accessibility to information now is so different to what it was 20 years ago for me. And I don't know how old you are, but, it was a kind of a different world. I went to the library as a kid to find out shit. I didn't go onto my phone to ask Google, not because they weren't around, just because we didn't afford it. So, I think it's, and Google 20 years ago was very different from Google today. So, I think it's, I mean, there's so many. I think we're just in a different world now. And like, if somebody was going to ask me, would you go to design school? I think I'd still say yes, because I think you do learn structure, communication skills, and other stuff that you don't learn being by yourself. So, it's one of those funny conversations, isn't it? And one that crops up a lot.
Yeah, it's I understand what you say. Well, I'm a little younger than you are. I'm now 29, but I was born in Bulgaria, and I grew up until I was 8 in Bulgaria. So I always say that somebody born in the 90s in Bulgaria is like somebody somewhere else born in the 80s, because we were quite behind due to the community.
So we're kind of the same age then.
Yeah. Then I can relate totally. No, I totally understand that, and from what you said, it's like your career has been quite experimental, and then you have tried around a lot of things, and I guess that would get very, very broad if we start going through everything in details. But I'm wondering, because you mentioned also that now younger people start directly into freelancing. At what point of your career you decided you're gonna start your own agency, your own business, and how did you come up with this idea? What was the process? How did it go through that?
Yeah, well, basically it was, I worked at the agency when I left school, university, I went and got a job in my last year of university, and then I worked at that design agency, media house, whatever you want to call it, for close to 5 years. And then basically they were shutting down. I was looking for jobs, I was doing all sorts, trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and it kind of got to that. I would have been 27 at that stage, and it was kind of that the cogs were going in my head. I always wanted to have my own business. It was just, when's a good time? And it was almost like fate kind of said, it's either now or never. Because I was going for design agency jobs, and if I'd got one of those, I would have been there for another 5 years, and I would have been mid-30s. And then it would have been like family, life, more commitment, more bills to pay, and all the rest of it. So I kind of thought, what, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. And I chatted with one of my mates, AD. So he's actually my business partner in Baby Giant. He does all the web-based stuff, and I do all the creative brand identity-based stuff. So we work quite well as a kind of duo. I just chatted to him and just said, look, should we start something together? Give it a couple of years. If it doesn't work out, we could always go and get another job. That was the beauty of it. There was we could always go and get another job. I think if you're in a job, you're kind of always wondering whether you should go alone and freelance. So we did it the other way around. So, it kind of was tough, really tough, made just enough money to eat for the first kind of couple of years, and get by. we didn't have a lot of overheads, which was lucky because we're obviously working from home and remotely, which, the wonders of the internet allow that. And then you could obviously go and hire meeting rooms to go and have meetings with people. So, yeah, and then year 3, year 4, it started to get a bit better. By year 5, we were pretty comfortable, and now we're year 11, and doing fantastic. But it wasn't always easy, and it's still not easy today. Do you know what I mean? Kind of keeping everybody happy, kind of managing workload. I've obviously now started personal brand exploration over the last 5 years with Made by James into a more kind of a niche logo based scenario. So I'm kind of juggling that, juggling Baby Giant, juggling this. But, I think you've always got to be juggling a little bit. So, but yeah, that was kind of my journey into having my own agency. It was purely out of necessity at the time, and also, if not now, when? And just perseverance and patience.
What were the initial steps when you started a business? Because of course, you're also somebody that has a little bit of experience in brand identity and design. And what was a step, if you want to say the step by step? So from what I understood, you started with your partner at the agency, or I don't know if I should call it agency or studio. And what was like the initial, really, like did you need to buy computers? What was the setup? What was also the, all the stuff that are not really design related? Because when you work for somebody at a company, you don't take care of all the side things like paperwork,
accounts,
accounting, taxes, and so on. Like which kind of company should you be opening, and stuff like that. So what were your difficulties? What were maybe the mistakes?
I mean, starting up anything is always tough. I mean, obviously, as designers, we had our own computers, which obviously helped at the time. We managed to get a little bit of kit off the people that we used to work for, so that kind of helped us, start. We got it at a good price. So, and then it was, basically we had no work. So that was kind of like a weird thing, no clients. I was obviously trying to find clients, obviously setting up the company, figuring out a name, and then creating websites, remember at this stage, I was only 5 years into my career and hadn't done a huge amount, of brand identity or, 5 years is some good knowledge, but, it's not all the knowledge you need. And I'm still learning today, like 15, 16 years in. So, so basically it was setting up company and making sure that was all correct. In the initial stages, we weren't VAT registered because you had to, obviously, you turn over a certain amount of money to then become VAT registered. But kind of going through company's house, making sure we could own the name, getting things trademarked like our logo. The beauty of it is the logo we did 10 years ago is still the logo we've got today, the little Baby Giant. That thing will outlive me, which is good. So, and I think that's kind of where I first started to get a real passion for the design process, because I was actually now designing something for me, or for us, I should say. We could create a website that was ours, that had our own language, the way we wanted to talk to people, our own way of visually communicating with people. And that's when it started to get quite exciting. It was like, rather than, we can actually put ourselves across as whoever we want to be. And that was something that I hadn't been able to do before. It's like when you do your own personal brand or your own company, you can kind of be whoever you want to be, rather than just doing something with some guidelines or working to a template or working with certain colors. Suddenly it was kind of, wow, we can be whatever we want to be. So, in the initial stages, it was website, set up company, get logo, and then we created like some little cards that we could go. We went to network meetings to try and get out there and see people. Yeah, just a lot of talking and a lot of kind of, working on our personal stuff. But I mean, that was one thing I would say is like, even though we didn't have any work, we still did a working day. So we'd still start at 9 and finish at 5, and that would be working on our own stuff, coming up with ideas. How can we make money? How can we do this? What do we need to do? How should we do it? Where do we need to be? Where do we need to be seen? Blah, 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 blah. And what that did is set us up really well, because as work started to come in, we were already working full days. So it was quite natural to kind of continue that off our own stuff and onto client work. So, yeah, that's one thing I would always say to somebody is don't just sit there, twiddle your thumbs, if you've got time, because soon, I wish I had that time back now. I have no time to do anything for myself anymore. So, yeah, I wish I could have some of those hours back. But, it's all learning, just constantly learning and evolving, really.
Yeah, you said a lot. And what I'm wondering now is like, when you took so I have quite a few questions, but let's make a little bit step by step. Why the name Baby Giant? When I saw your email, when you gave me your email, because the email is under the company name, I was like, yeah, that's a quite funny name and fits to the guy. So how did you come up with the idea?
I typed in oxymoron into Google, and a list came up, and I chose it. It took me about 5 minutes. I love oxymoron. So, but yeah, big, small, baby, giant, hot, cold. That is an oxymoron for anybody who doesn't know. So, yes. Yeah, I just kind of went through this list, and then I quite liked the way that we were a baby and we wanted to be a giant, and that kind of cool journey. And I could see it could be quite a cool logo, a small looking giant. And yeah, literally, we took 5 minutes over that name. I just typed in oxymoron to Google, and we went from there.
That sounds like I don't know if you know the story of the rapper Post Malone. I think he went into a rapper name generator and come up with Post Malone, and now he's a super famous rapper.
Yeah. And love that. It's good as well.
And the other thing I'm curious is like you mentioned like that your thought process behind the starting the company was to not wait too much, because later in life your situation changes, and you might have relationship, family, and things like that. So at the moment you started, what was your private relationship status, and did you, before you took the leap leaving your job, your security, did you have saved some money, so to say, okay, now I have, I don't know, money for 5-6 months, or did you go back to your parents? How was that initial moment?
Yeah, so I wasn't married at the time. I did have, I was with the lady I am now married to, but at that stage we weren't married. And we kind of, we lived in different places. And yeah, money-wise, I had some money set up, or saved, I should say. And I think that's an important thing. Like I said, like our overheads weren't a huge amount. We kind of went and stayed in her dad's place and lived with them for a little bit. And kind of, it was just basically working, living in a bedroom, getting stuff done. And yeah, I obviously had some savings from the job and, some stuff that I had saved up from past. But yeah, and like I said, we did have some money coming in, but it wasn't, I'm not talking, we're maybe talking 20,000 a year, but that was between like 2 people. So it's kind of 10,000, but then you've also got to shrink that down a little bit to kind of, that's turnover. That's not what we actually made. So, I think, we kind of had enough to get by,
Where are you based? I mean, I can hear you in the UK, but where exactly in
Yeah.
which city are you based?
So I'm not in a city, I'm in a village. I'm in, so basically I'm about 2 hours south of London, which is kind of like just below Winchester, Southampton area. Up from Southampton, below Winchester, in the kind of middle there.
So basically being able to work also from like, as you said, online from your hometown, it was easier, let's say, to I mean, by making less money, it was easier because you weren't like in a city like London or something, which is
is higher prices. Yeah, but I mean, all I had to do was, we didn't pay for Adobe software back then. Nobody did. It was just all pirated. It was, nothing was paid for. So like, we just had our own. We just set up like Gmail account. No, I don't think they were Gmail. I think there was there was some old one, AOL or whatever it was, BT Connect. So it was kind of free email. Internet. Was pretty minimal. And that's all we needed. I could work in the garden as long as I had internet. I could work anywhere, and I think that's the kind of beauty of that remote. If internet is a part of your business and a part of your communication, it really helps. But we had, we went and saw a lot of local businesses, and once you start getting in with one local business, you then get another local business, and everybody talks to each other. I go down to my local village now, where we live, and within, 20 odd different businesses, I can see 4 of my logos, and that's done ages ago. Do you know what I mean? So, it's quite, I think that's the power of communication and putting yourself out there is actually, as I said, you can't sit and just wait for stuff, go and knock on doors and say, do you want me to do something for you? And that's the kind of thing we did, go to networking meetings, and, they're all boring as hell, but you make connections.
In order like to defend Adobe, they made it a little bit easier nowadays to start legally because they changed their business model. You don't have to spend like thousands of euros
I mean, when I was starting, it was, if you didn't, I mean, it was thousands of pounds.
Because you actually bought the software and you own the software. Now you just kind of rent it. It's like the Netflix thing that you pay a month and then you're
it's impossible to do that now. But like I said, I'm talking like 15, 10 years ago, 10, 12 years ago, it was just impossible to buy it, just couldn't do it. So you just find a way, wouldn't you? Illegal, even though it is.
Yeah, and I mean, like when you're an entrepreneur and you want to start something, sometimes you need to play a little bit borderline, if you have to.
And don't worry, Adobe gets a hell of a lot of money from me these days, so they're doing all right.
And you mentioned how important and crucial is to be networking, and this is something that I'm really curious about because, for example, you said you started with no work, and that's kind of normal. From my industry, it's even harder because if you want to hire somebody to build you the brand identity and they so to say fuck it up, they didn't do a good job, of course you can still a little bit repair more, especially if you're a smaller business, but if you build a house, nobody trusts you before you have built a first house. And then and then you never build a first house because nobody trusts you for the first time.
Well, there's also probably a slight difference in price between what I do and a house.
yes, most probably. But I'm also curious, what was your networking process and strategy, and what were the first jobs that you got? You went to, I mean, of course you said local businesses, but what how did you network in the beginning? I'm curious how you start, because once the first 2, 3, 4, 10, 20 clients are the hardest than now.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, as my good friend Mike Janda would say, your first job will be through somebody you know, but the only way you're going to get that job is if you tell people what you do. So just tell everybody. I am, from my point of view, I now have a design agency. I do this, I do that. We do web, we do branding, we do flyers, we do this, we do that. And what that does is it puts you in people's minds. So when, for example, they're with another friend, they're with their business owner or working in their job, and somebody's going, oh, we really need somebody to do our website, or we really need to update our website, or we really need to update our logo. You know, your mate or your family member, or whoever it is, will go, well, I know somebody who does that. And that's how conversations start, you know, as well as going in and asking business owners whether they want something. I mean, friends, family who have businesses, approaching them and saying, look, this is what I'm doing. Can I do? I mean, I did a lot of free work for people just to be doing work that was out in the world. So yeah, that's kind of, you know, over time, what happens then once you get 10, you know, those 10 bits of work are out in the world, and that becomes advertising for your work. And, you know, if you do a good job and people like working with you, they'll tell other people, you know, when they're in conversations, and that escalates to a stage right now, you know, for example, on Instagram, you know, 210,000 people, you know, I'm constantly sharing work, I'm constantly sharing my process. You know, and even like today, I did a post about, I can't remember what it was. It was only a few hours ago, but it was basically based about like how my logo packages work, for example. And I have had since, you know, over the last 5 hours, probably close to 7 or 8 people ask me about how can we work together. So being open and communicating about how you work, what you do, is such an integral part to being, you know, seen. You know, you've got to be seen and heard to be worked with. You know, as I say, you can't just hide and wait for stuff to happen. You got to put it out there. And that's why sharing your work is so important these days, because your work is what's going to sell you and get you money. So yeah, just get out there. You know, I know it's tough for a lot of people. You know, some people are very shy, but you know, you have to, if you want to make it, you have to put yourself out there, and get over that the difficulty of it. Difficultness isn't a word, you know, and just kind of push through. You know, it gets easier.
Yeah. And that was my next question, was exactly that, like, because you started with the networking and how you started networking, and nowadays we are more and more into social media, and you are really huge on social media. So I wanted to ask you, how did you start with social media, and what is the role they play for you? Because like I always ask this, was there a moment where you got viral and you started being so popular, or did you?
No.
Was it like just by being consistent? How do you deal with this new tool of marketing? And
well, I mean, I think that's such an important thing. Like the word you just said there is new tool. You know, we have to keep evolving with technology, with the way the people are using technology, the way people are looking for work. You know, when I was growing up, you used to go into like the yellow pages to go and find people. You know, nowadays you go and find people on Instagram, you know, and they don't have to be local. You know, I'm working with people in Australia and New Zealand, Africa, United States, all over Europe. You know, your audience is so much bigger now, you know, thanks to things like social media, especially when it comes to my job. It's, you know, architect-wise, you know, you might be able to do it from across the different world, but, especially for my job, you know, it's all done via Zoom calls and, you know, online chats and email and all the rest of it. But, yeah, I mean, social, Yeah, so when I first started, I don't even remember when Instagram started or Facebook, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't around when Baby Giant. It might have been around. I don't know how long it's been around. Decade, maybe 12 years. I'm not too sure, but yeah, I wasn't really on it. And then I think it was about 7 or 8 years ago. I read a book by Austin Kleon called "Show Your Work," um, and I was really trying to, I wanted Baby Giant to be something. I wanted to kind of make more money. I wanted to, figure out ways of doing that. So I started to share work, on personal profile a little bit, and on Baby Giant's account. And then suddenly, you get a little bit more traction, a little bit more engagement. But, I've posted, I don't even know how many posts I've done now, like over 2,000 over the last five years or so. So I'm posting like 3 or 4 times a week. But it's just, the stuff I post, obviously gets me followers, but it gets me loads of clients. It's a great way of communicating how I work, my ideas, how my brain works. They can visually see all of this. And what that does, that creates trust. And I'm always putting my face in front of my work and being very open about my process and how it works and all the rest of it. And, it's a great tool. I mean, I'm probably 40% of my clients today, is probably social media, 40%, the other 40% word of mouth, and then 20% probably, Google, website, and bits and pieces like that. So it's a big chunk, but social media is a big chunk of search, a big chunk of people's advertising, and where they find people now. So so I think that answered the question. I think.
Yeah, definitely you did. Do you remember something about this book, Show Your Work, from Austin Kleon that got stuck in your mind?
Yeah, well, it was basically just the title, show your work. That was something that I didn't do. It was all pictures of my dog, pictures of me drinking around a fire. It was all kind of more home life. And then I kind of decided to, hang on, why don't I use this account to share my process and share my work? And there was I started to share my drawings. I started to share some little doodles of typography I would do. And I would share the odd logo that I did for a mate. And, the compound theory of consistently doing that for the last 7 years is taking me from, you got to remember that everybody starts with 0 followers, everybody. But I've consistently been showing up, sharing my stuff for the last 6-7 years. And then as made by James, probably over the last 5, because it was a different account before that. And the compound theory of that consistency, and obviously, the sharing that I do now with reference to like the value proposition of what the stuff I'm giving. I mean, I give away stuff that people charge for. Do you know what I mean? And that's just the way I want to help people, and when I have my book out and my logo course, hopefully they'll buy it. But, if they don't, at least I'm giving back to the community that today is giving me so much. So, it's a very valuable tool if kind of used in the right way. It was just showing the work. Just showing work has got me to where I am today. So I owe Austin a beer, I think.
Yeah, for sure. It's great, and I think it's like this is how also you caught me with your content, because I think what I told you I started following quite a few graphic designers, brand designers, so that I get inspiration, that I see what they do. Mm-hmm. A lot of people share color palettes and stuff like that. Yeah. And then it's crazy how much you can learn through just reading some simple stuff. Really, you minimize the possibility of doing something wrong since the beginning.
100%.
And what I really liked about your account is that all the other graphic designers or brand designers that are quite popular and out there, they show content with their like style, and you have this really handmade doodly positioning, which is like you combine again an oxymoron, because you use social media, which is so digital, and there is often a pencil in your
but it's I'm super analog when it comes to process, but that comes from being an illustrator and an artist, not a good illustrator or a good artist, but always drawing as a kid. And I love, I'd much prefer to spend 10 hours in a sketchbook than 10 hours on a computer. And I think the interesting thing about design is how you come to the end result. It's not the end result, it's what's the journey that got you from nothing to something. I think that bit in the middle is the really interesting bit, and the mindset and the theory behind decision making. I think that's the interesting thing, and I think other people find that interesting as well, because a lot of people don't generally share that. They just share a final logo, and that's it.
Yeah, I agree with that, and that I like also that you really show this process, which is with your pencil, which is probably the quickest tool between your brain and the idea.
Oh yeah.
And is it still the company Baby Giant still a two-man show, so to say, or do you have now more people on board that also work for you and cover some of the workload?
Yeah, so basically there's still me and Adi. We're still here. I still do every single logo that you see. I get zero help with that. That is all 100% me. But I do have a young designer on here at Baby Giant now, who helps with like creating the brand docs and business cards once logo's done and all the rest of it. And kind of helps with like the Baby Giant social media. I deal with all the Made by James stuff, and he helps with other bits and pieces like uploading to Pinterest and Instagram, and so that helps with brand docs, talks to clients, kind of lightens the load with some stuff. And then we've got an animator who helps kind of take, we used to do it all ourselves, but once you're doing, when we get 100 new clients a year, you can't be doing absolutely everything yourself. So kind of got an animator on. We've got an accountant, obviously. We have a lady who does our accounts. So basically, whatever the stuff that we don't want to do, we now find people to do it. Funny enough, tomorrow I'm spending the day with my new PA, who's going to basically I've got Baby Giant, I've got Made by James, I've got a book launching, I've got logo courses coming out, and calls scheduled, work to be done. So I'm kind of in this kind of weird space now. I just need a human to tell me where I need to be and when I need to do it. So she's starting as of tomorrow, which is going to be a massive help, because that will lighten my load when it comes to communicating with clients, especially from, because I usually have like an 8 to 10 week waiting list, and she'll kind of facilitate and help guide that relationship from before we start the work, basically, which I do all myself at the moment, all of my emails, absolutely everything. So just kind of trying to streamline everything. So we've kind of gone from a 2-man team to maybe like 4 or 5, but they're kind of all part-time, on per projecty kind of basis kind of thing. And we got.
And do you have an office? Do you still work all separate? So we both work remote. So especially with the whole COVID thing that happened. We used to. This was both of our offices. This is a converted garage at my house, which I've turned into the Baby Giant office. But with COVID, we found it really easy to work, remotely. He doesn't have to travel, I don't have to put pants on, so it's all a win-win. It's so nice to know that now only the top part of you is covered.
So I've only got clothes here.
But like what I also now I'm really curious, maybe which is the nicest part to talk about, is like your process nowadays, because I've been talking on this podcast with many people that are and creatives and entrepreneurs in different fields. We had anything you can imagine, architects, the graphic designers, motion graphic designers, computer graphic artists. And my question is, now that your company has grown and that you have more stability, so to say, do you still have the time to really be creative all the time? And how does your work day look like? How many hours do you need to work nowadays? Is it still super crazy and you do crazy hours?
I mean, obviously I have office hours, but I don't. I work from when I wake up to when I go to bed, whether that's, I have clients all over the planet. When I'm finishing, they're just getting up. So there's always somebody to talk to. Hence why, the PA is going to be a big help in kind of allowing me to rest a little bit. I have a very set routine. I'll wake up the same time every day. I'll go to work at the same time every day. I'll generally leave the office the same time every day. But now I'm doing coaching and other things, I tend to, be a little bit packed. So I'm basically, I would say on average, a 12-hour day. On the weekends, I probably do, maybe 2 or 3 hours in the morning, on Saturday and Sunday, and then obviously social media replies, replying to comments, replying to DMs, replying to emails. So I think when you work for yourself, you don't really switch off that much, because if you do switch off, if you're not working, you're not making money. That's kind of the crux of it. I do spend time on the weekend and the evenings with my wife. You're stopping me from doing that right now, so she's going to be really upset with me.
I'm sorry. I'm asking sorry to your wife live, and say big hi, and thank you for giving me your husband for a couple of hours.
So that's why I said I'll usually finish around 6, go into the office, go back into the home. Spend some time with my wife, walk the dog. We walk the dog every morning together. So there is times in the day which are mine. We read books together in bed before we go to sleep, which is a nice kind of, stress down time. Go to bed pretty early. I'm in bed by 10 o'clock, 10 p.m. But, we're also up at 5:30, 6. So, the kind of, I'm super productive in the mornings and kind of tend to slow down about 4, which is when I do my emailing, my social media, podcasts, stuff that doesn't require too much brain power from me. That's kind of my routine, really.
Yeah, I can imagine that. And currently, while talking to you, I'm just been scrolling through your Instagram, and then the last few weeks when we set up the recording date, I've been really paying way more attention than usually. I would be analyzing a little more your work and the different logos, and I'm gonna be like, I'm saying this not because it's you, but it's really like some of the logos I think, oh, this is such a smart idea, such a very cool logo that totally represents the brand, or what is meant to represent. Like, for example, the one about I think it was a mental health center or something like that, where these are
existential psychiatry.
Existential. And there was there are many, like, if people go to your website or to your I think you did a logo for your wife that does a cooking show or something like that.
She's a blogger and photographer, so I didn't charge her. She got that one for free, so she was quite lucky. Yeah.
Otherwise, and Yeah, I'm curious now to go more deep into your creative process. Like you got an assignment, for example, let's say from your wife. That's the logo for the Kate's food channel. Um, how do you know, every brand say something. It can be more gentle, it can be more modern, it can be futuristic, can be, I don't know, many things. It's like a person. So
Yeah.
what is your process, all, like, if you can share completely with not only about the drawing that we see and sketching, but do you do like do you collect images that will inspire you? How do you do the whole thing?
Crikey, how long was this podcast? Because that's going to be like another
Oh,
2.5
I mean,
hours.
I have time. I don't know if your wife.
I don't have time, but I've probably got another 15 minutes or so. But so I'll try and break it down as quick as possible. So basically, obviously, it always start with somebody reaching out to me, saying they want a logo. I'll then email them back with my prices. I got fixed price for logo design. So the things, the bits and pieces I ask for is I always ask for a mood board. I always ask for a brief. If they don't have those things, I help guide them with questionnaires and, tell them to put Pinterest boards together and all the rest of it. So usually from that information that I receive, there's always bits and pieces that I can take to use to create. So basically always before the call, before the project starts, we'll have a call, and talk through their brief, talk about their business, their values, their demographic, their customers, who they want to reach, target market, like I said, values and all the bits and pieces. All the way I'm making notes and kind of slowly kind of figuring out ideas. When I've got all that information, I'll start to kind of word map it. And what I mean by a word map is I'll take like kind of important words, put them in a page, and then branch off that, with other ideas. So it could be, for example, there might be a partnership, so they might have two people, on board, like business partners. So they'll kind of use words like two, duality, let's say partnership, linking, because you can do two things linking, for example, to show two elements. So all the way through this kind of word mapping process, I'm kind of slowly kind of thinking, well, that might be quite a cool way to visually take it, or that might be quite a cool way to visually take it. And once I've kind of got all my word map sorted, I'll kind of pick out the most important things that I think I want to represent in the logo, and then I'll go into a sketch phase, super rough, rapid prototype, loads of doodles, loads of different ideas, and then usually from that kind of crazy 20 minutes, half an hour, sometimes an hour, depending on how much fun I'm having, I'll kind of go, well, that's quite interesting, or that's quite interesting, or that's quite interesting. And what I'll do is I'll keep refining my ideas until there's something that I think, hang on a minute, as creatives, we'll look at something and go, that is cool, there's something in that. And then basically what I'll do is I'll get that all refined, sketched up, make sure it works. And my theory, the reason why I sketch so much is that I think if I can make it look good as a drawing, I know it's going to look good as a finished vector, or on a business card, or on signage and all the rest of it. So my process is I show people one logo at a time. I don't show them multiple ideas. I like to put my full ass into one idea rather than half-ass load of ideas. That's kind of my process. And then from that, they get a certain amount of revisions with the price that they pay and all the rest of it. So, so once I've kind of chosen my idea, I'll get it vectored up. And then I'll start to mock it up on what I would classify as industry-specific mock-up. So if they're a cafe, I'm going to make it show it working within a cafe setting. If it's a coffee shop, I'll show you it working in, like on coffee bags, on coffee mugs, So basically what I'm doing here is I'm not allowing my client to have too much imagination. If you just show them a logo, they're going to go, well, it looks great, but how does it look on a coffee cup, or how does it work on signage? I'm basically kind of ticking all of those boxes for them. So when they've got my email and when I send them all of my sketches, all of my mock-ups, I detail email with like all of my decision making. This is why I've done this. 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 So when they come to opening it, it's like one big story, being told all the way from a sketch, all the way through to a finished article, all the explanation as to why I've done what I've done. And that is basically in 5 minutes my process, and if they don't like it, I'm a big believer in like collaborating and partnership. I ask them to kind of focus in on what it is they don't like, and if I agree, if it's kind of, sometimes they go, I just don't like it. That's not enough information. You got to tell me why you don't like it. What's the reason? It can't just be because you don't like the color blue, because you got to remember about your target audience that this is for. And there's a lot of kind of deeper brand strategy stuff, I suppose, behind the execution. But yeah, and then if they I suppose when it comes to once they sign it off, it's based down to deliverables and different packages I do depending on what they get. But I send them all. They own the logo 100%. I send them all the vector files, and then I'm on to the next one. And I probably do. I've kind of upped my prices quite a bit over the last 3 or 4 years. So I'm probably about 80 to 100 a year, I would say, logos. So then it's, I say like it's kind of repeat. And I'm working with so many cool different people, different companies, massive companies, tiny startup companies. They all get the same effort. That's basically my process sprawled out in now 7 minutes.
We can call it a distilled, made by James logo design.
It is. That was a made by James rant on process. That was. But like, if you go onto my Instagram, I clearly label all of my and talk for all of my processes and everything. So if anybody's slightly more interested and wants to know more, come and chat to me, or you can see it on my posts. Easy. Yeah,
and I think you have done something similar for the people who join your newsletter, because the people who join the newsletter of you, they get some initial material or access to some logo material.
Yeah, which is what I've called the logo. Yeah, the logo black book, where I've kind of got like some typography kind of tutorials, like how I price, how you can price work, and all these kind of like weird, just weird documents or tips and tricks on how you can, just knowledge, value, just trying to do my bit for the community.
And then what I wanted to ask you, and then after that, I'm not gonna keep you too much longer. I could talk to you for really, literally, probably 2-3 hours, no problem, because it's really, really interesting. And by just seeing your work, I come up with ideas of questions that I could ask you. But I've noticed that soon now there is the pre-order of your book. With the logos, and I've been surfing around with the sites of Baby Giant and your own website, and there is a lot of, for example, you clearly probably planning to make a class, a course, and you're having a lot of affiliate links, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
How do you like? Because a lot of designers, a lot of creatives don't know is that, we work for something that requires time, and we paid sort of per hour or our time. And then by doing this side stuff, like affiliate marketing on passive income, like for example, writing a book, it's like, okay, you write a book, but then the book can sell on and on and on, and be like a sort of income. How have you developed this other side of the business, and is it this now relevant, or is it just pocket money that you can make side of it? And
I mean, I didn't write a book. I was never supposed to write a book. I didn't plan to write a book. The publishers kind of reached out to me and said, "Would you like to write a book?" And I was just like, "Yeah, that's an opportunity I can't pass up." And so, yeah, I mean, I think passive income is. I think it's always good. You know, we're creative people at the end of the day. I think there are so many ways to make, you know. I don't even like the term passive income because it takes a hell of a lot of hard work to kind of create a logo course, you know, create tutorials, create, you know, communities and all this stuff. I mean, it takes a load of time and a load of effort. But, you know, there are, you know, for example, I brought out a font. And basically what it does, it just kind of takes a bit of for me, it takes a bit of pressure off, and it's quite enjoyable, you know, like creating fonts, you know, and making an extra £3,000 or £4,000 a year, you know, creating a book, you know, and that's already making me 10 plus K, and as it's not even out yet. Do you know what I mean? So, I mean, all these kind of tiny little, well, they're not so tiny, these are good little revenue streams on top of what I'm making at Baby Giant as what I would call a salary, you know, well, basically what I pay myself from the company, and try not to give too much to the tax man. You know, all these kind of tiny pockets, you know, a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here. If you kind of got all of these things happening, suddenly your pot's quite big. And you know what? If one drops, you've still got other ones to work with, you know, and, you know, I want it also depends on who you want to be and where you want to go in the future. You know, I love working with clients. I'll always have clients, but I also have a passion to help people. So I want to create a logo course, you know, and that's going to take a huge amount of time, a huge amount of effort, and it won't be a huge amount of money, but, you know, the numbers will help it sell well, you know, and do all right. I mean, it's not going to be like $10, but it's not going to be $1,000. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, I think, but what that will allow me to do is that income will allow me to do half the amount of logo work, because I'll be probably making more money than I am today doing just logo work. So it's just all about kind of figuring out who you want to be and your mission, and, you know, what you want to be. You know, I already know who I want to be in 10 years time. I know exactly what I'm going to be doing in 5 years time, you know, so I think understanding those things allows you to put things in place, and, you know, whatever makes you happy at the end of the day. I mean, all these revenue streams, yeah, they sound great, but do you know what? You try running an agency, running 2 brands, and writing a book at the same time. It's not easy.
No, but by passive income, I didn't mean easy, because like also like building your audience, and also the work you do, it's the fruit of years of hustling and hard work and the skills you have. So of course I'm not saying that this is easy. I'm just saying that this is something that can pay you back after the very hard work, to have this you know, maybe while you're sleeping and you have a class, somebody can subscribe to that class, and then you worked a lot to make money while sleeping, but it's definitely.
And if you're an artist and you've got a 9-to-5 job, you know, there's so many great places you can put your art on T-shirts, put your art on prints, you know, and as you say, like, make money. You know, once it's out there, it's just making money. You know, you get somebody else to print it, somebody else to send it. Yeah, there's all these cool websites that you can use to do all of that. And I think I said, as creatives, you know, you can push as hard as you want to push. You know, there's no right way, there's no wrong way. You know, I think you've just got to figure out who you want to be and what you want, and then drive towards that and see what happens, because it won't all work. You know, I might spend 2,000 hours building this logo course and nobody buy it, but it's a risk I'm willing to take. Do you know what I mean? Because it's what I want to be doing. So you only know when you know.
and what it's gonna be this book really? It's just it's sort of a written form of your process and a guide how to make logos, or is it just more a visual book? What is it the book about?
It's basically the book I wish I had growing up as a creative. I've every single question I've answered on social media and from my followers is in that book. How to come up with ideas, how to start an agency, how to deal with negative clients, what to do when it goes wrong, how to price, basically anything that I've been asked, I've been listening and I've put it in a book. There's obviously case studies based with work, how I come up with ideas, cultivating communities, dealing with the self-doubt jackal, as I like to call him, and basically anything a creative's gone through, there are tips, tricks, and ideas within this book to help them get through it. I'm still learning. It's just basically everything that I've learned and had to deal with as a designer, and every other designer I know is also dealing with them, is kind of in this book. So it's not really a self-promotional book. It's more of a Bible. It's like your best mate, in the good times and the bad. That's what it is.
Yeah. So I'm really curious. I think I will order it very soon.
Good.
Because I think it's really nice to have. This is what I was trying to to achieve through my show, is to start a dialogue between the different kind of designers, because you can get inspired from something that's architecture related. I can get inspired by something that's graphic design or logo design related. And back in the days, artists were used to dialogue in cafes, and it was a different kind of communications. Now we have podcasts, and I think it's really awesome that we can share our message and our word to other people and get some guidance, as you said, because just a few years ago there was no such way of information. But I want to thank you one more time. I don't want to take you any longer from your wife.
She will kill me.
I hope not. We always finish with something. I call it the pool of inspiration. So when you feel you want to get inspired, do you have a favorite book, music, movie, plays, any kind of podcast, something that you enjoy doing? And then also please in the end say also where people can find you online.
I like the outdoors. For me, does it every time. I don't listen to many podcasts. I don't do many courses. I don't spend a lot of time watching TV or anything like that. I work in silence. I don't listen to that much music. So for me, quiet is lovely. The woods is my kind of favorite happy place. So so that's what I would say. The woods, walking, or the sea. I quite like the sea. Anything outdoors. But to find me at made.by.james on YouTube, on Instagram. Basically, if you type in Made by James into Google, you'll find me everywhere. So that's a bit of a bonus for me now. So just hit me up. Always happy to chat, answer any questions. But thank you very much for allowing me to go, because my wife will kill me.
Thank you very much for being, and I'll be adding all the links in the description of this podcast. And thank you everybody for listening. Bye, James.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
The whole world stops just like that.
Hey friends, thank you very much for listening to this podcast. You've been amazing. Before we go, I just want to remind you that if you want to support us, you can just go on the creativeinsider.com, where you can subscribe to our monthly newsletter, or you can follow us on our social media channels, which are Instagram at TCI Podcast, or the LinkedIn page, The Creative Insider. By doing this, you will have a bigger social media presence, which always looks attractive to more and more important guests. And
So this is very fundamental. And if you really love what we do and you want to help us doing a better production, just click on the Patreon link below where you can support us with the wished amount of money you think it's okay for you. It's a monthly subscription, but you can cancel anytime. So thank you very much and have a good week, guys. Bye bye.